Okay, so I am working on my next world building video, and oh my gosh, I'm so excited. It's going to be so cool, but it's kind of turning into a monster of a project, and I think that I don't know how long it's going to take. So in the meantime, I decided to go ahead and do an Adobe Illustrator tutorial because a lot of people have been asking me for that lately. However, I just want to note that I was not professionally trained to use Adobe Illustrator. I took a couple of classes at my community college a long time ago, and that kind of gave me the head start I needed. But pretty much all of the techniques that I use now, I have kind of figured out how to do on my own. What I'm trying to say is I'm going to show you how I use Adobe Illustrator, but that does not make it the best or most efficient way to do so. Take it for what it is. So I wanted to do just one complete project start to finish and just kind of go over some of the basic tools and techniques that I use on almost every single thing I do. I do want to note that the particular sketch that I'm going to be digitizing today is one that I did at least 2 or 3 years ago, and I used as a template some art from Pinterest, but I was not able to find that piece of art again, and I was not able to figure out where it came from, but here we go. So first you're going to scan it in, and I use a flatbed scanner, and I tend to scan at 600 DPI because I like it to be nice and clear when I zoom into all of the small details. I am working on an artboard that is 32 inches wide by 18 inches tall, and the only reason I use that particular set of dimensions is because it's scaled to YouTube, but just for reference so that you know kind of roughly what I'm working with. First I want to tell you how I make a brush, and I want to give you an exact mathematical formula that you can copy yourself. To do this, you'll use the ellipse tool to make a circle that is 0.25 inches. This ellipse tool has 4 points, and I clicked on the east and west point and converted them from curves into angles. And then going up to the transform box, I readjusted the height of it to 0.2 inches. And that gave me a pretty decent shape for the brush. And again, it doesn't have to be that exactly, but that's what I'm using. So with that shape selected, you'll go under your brushes tab and click new brush. And we're going to make an art brush. And I pretty much leave the settings like that. I like it to be nice and consistent when I'm working with it. If I want the size to be different, I will click a different size. I don't want it to be pressure sensitive. And now we're ready to trace all of the outlines. I'm sorry I just subjected you to that if you don't like salsa music for some reason. Okay, all of the basic outlines are done, and you will notice that they are very messy looking. And the reason for that is because I always intentionally make sure I overlap every line for reasons that will become clear once you understand how the unite and divide tools work. So drawing all of those outlines only took 51 seconds of screen time, but in real life it took 32 minutes. And now we have to clean the art up. And how we do that is we select all, we go up to Object, Expand, and then we go over to Pathfinder and click Divide. Now that takes all of these lines and groups them together. So what you want to do is you want to expand that group under the layers, and you want to scroll to the very bottom of it, and you'll see a bunch of blank box-looking shapes. And basically those are blank objects that are created whenever you click Divide and there is an empty enclosed space. So you need to click one of those, go up to Select, and then Same, and then Fill and Stroke, and it will grab all of those blank boxes, and you can just click delete and get rid of all of them at once. And now it is very easy to just start combing through the art and finding all of those unnecessary overlapped lines and just deleting them one by one. Okay, now that is done, and surprisingly, it only took 20 minutes to clean up all of my outlines. Now it's time to turn this basic outline layer into a fill, and how we do that is you select all once again, you click Command-C to copy, and then Command-Shift-V to paste it in place over top. So then you have two identical layers of these outlines. We're going to select the bottom layer, and then you're going to go up again and click that divide button. Even though it's already been divided, once you renew that divide, it will add all of those little blank boxes back. And this is where they're useful. So now if you just pick any random color as the fill, it will turn all of those blank boxes into filled in boxes. So then all you have to do is just sort through and recolor the boxes how you want them, but you don't actually have to fill anything in yourself. So I'm just gonna make it green as a placeholder, but then to start filling it in, I have a basic color palette that I've already put together for this project. In order to come up with my hue variations, is that the right technical word? I don't even know. I'm going to take this entire group of swatches and then copy and paste it above. And then I'm going to take that group of swatches and copy and paste it in place. Now this top overlay, I'm going to go under the transparency tab, and where it says normal, I'm going to open the drop box and change it to screen. And this will make all of the colors just a little bit lighter. And then I'm going to copy and paste it twice again below that, except for this one, I'm going to change it to multiply. And then I'm going to copy and paste it one more time, and this time I'm going to add 2 layers of multiply. So with these 4 variations, we have the highlight color, we have the base color, we have the shade color, and then we have the dark color that I'm going to use for my outlines. Now the weird thing about this is that you can't just copy and paste and use that color that we've just made, because it will basically copy it as a multiply layer instead of just as a flat color. So what I need to do is take all of those boxes, transfer them to a new document, export it, re-import it as a PNG file, and then bring it back so that I can actually use the eyedropper to take color off of those. Okay, now the flat colors are done, and that took me about 17 minutes, which means that the full length of time that it took to get up to this point was about 1 hour and 10 minutes, which really isn't bad if you just want to do some simple digitizing. Normally this is where I would stop, but there is a lot more you can do, so let's just play around and see how many more layers of depth and dimension we can add to it. Okay, the first thing we're going to do to add some texture is we're going to colorize the outlines. So instead of a flat black line, they'll reflect the fills that they're outlining. This is very tedious because basically you just have to start gathering and selecting all of the individual lines that you want to colorize a certain way. And I do think that it's helpful for the individual pieces that are going to be colored a certain way, so say the glove, that you, as you're selecting the lines across it, you click the Unite tool, and that will help to group them and make it a lot easier to manage overall. It doesn't make a huge difference on the darker pieces, so the browns and the greens, it's not going to be very apparent. But when it gets to the lighter pieces like the silvers and skin tone, it's going to make a bigger impact. There's probably a better way to do this, but I don't know how. This is just what works for me. As you go along, there are some things that you can colorize differently. So say the scar on the arm, it doesn't have to be outlined. It can just be simply colored in with a paler pink color. And the same goes for the eyes. At this point, we can kind of do them more manually and we don't have to just stick with the outlines as they are. The important thing about this is to keep in mind the three-dimensional side of things. So you want to make sure that you're getting the outlines in the manner that they would actually appear so that you're not outlining things that should actually be behind find other things. All right, that is done, and it clocked in right at about another hour and 11 minutes for just changing all of the lines. So is it worth the time? I don't even know. But what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add the highlights. For the highlights, I like to use the gradient tool, and it's not perfect, but I think it looks kind of cool, so that's just what I do. In order to convert our flat fills into gradient fills, first we need to take this color palette and we need to use the eyedropper tool to add it all into the swatch panel. Then we can start clicking our flat fills and turning them into gradients. For some of them, a round gradient will work best. For others, you might want to just do a linear gradient, aligning it with where the source of light would be angling in from. And for each of these gradient fills, I'm going to be making the darker shade that base color, and then I'm going to be making the lighter shade the lightest screen overlay color. Now for a piece like the vest, all of the fills are on just slightly separated panels. So what we want to do is join and unite those panels so that they will get one flat angle of gradient across it, instead of just being an individual gradient for each panel. So how we do that is we grab a point and we drag it into the panel that we want to join it with, click both of them, and then click unite. And then they will share a single gradient. I'm going to do the same thing with shoes. Uh-oh. Okay, so you're never gonna believe what I did. I accidentally hit the shortcut for revert, and then I was moving so fast that I just clicked OK before I even read it. And that brought me back to where I started this morning, because I haven't actually saved it all day. So I had to recolorize it, redo all of the lines, and then I caught it back up roughly to where I left off of putting the gradients on the fills. I'm gonna have to quit here tonight. I haven't done anything that dumb on Illustrator for a really long time, and of course I'm trying to film a tutorial, so of course I would do that. Anyways, yeah, see you tomorrow. Okay, so the gradient fills are done, and I really love how much more depth and texture you can get just from doing that one step. And that one took an additional 41 minutes, which I think is okay. Not including the 2 hours I lost having to do makeup work, but I don't know if I should include that in the actual time count. Now there is one last thing left, and that is to add the shadows, and this is my least favorite part of pretty much anything, so I've been putting it off. So I haven't done this for a long time, and I kind of had to play around with it to figure out how I was going to do it. What I ended up doing was copying and pasting that whole gradient fill layer back on top, and I changed the fills to the third shadow shade of each one. I decided those were too dark, so I ended up bumping the transparency down to 50%. So once I had the entire semi-transparent shadow layer, I started to cut out the shadows using the knife tool, which is a little bit fiddly to work with because you have to make sure that the lines actually cut all the way through, otherwise you're not going to fully separate the panels and be able to delete what you want. So it's a little annoying, but it ended up working out fine. I'm not very good at doing shadows, or at least I don't feel very confident doing shadows. I feel like I'm just kind of guessing where they should go, and I don't really have a good background on actually knowing where the light would hit. So I just kind of do my best and then hope people will be like, oh, well, you tried. The hair was the most complex to do, but the shadows actually contribute a lot towards it, so it's important. And then it made a real big difference on all of the folds and gathers of the pants. And then the last thing I did is I copied and pasted a layer over the eyes. I changed it to black and then bumped the transparency down to 25%. And then I cut a little eyelid shadow for the eye. So the shadows took another hour and 20 minutes, which brings the total for this project up to about 4.5 hours. Or 6.5 if we're gonna count the accidental deletion. And let's see how we did. I really like it. You know, pencil sketches are really beautiful with all the cross hatching, but there's something about color that just really brings a character to life. So yeah, if you learned something or found this video useful, give it a like. If you have any questions or suggestions, may I direct you to the comments section. And if you want to stick around and see more, go ahead and subscribe.